Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Coffee and Football. I'm your host, Blake Monroe, where I'm joined each and every day by Bobby Burton and Jerry Hamilton. Tell us where you're checking in from this morning. Be sure to get your questions in. Also, tell us what you're drinking as well. We'd love to see that. And, guys, let's start with the NFL Combine this morning. We're starting to see some colleges put out how many players are invited. I'm sure we'll see something from Texas in the near future. But before they do that, my question to y'all is, how many do you think we see invited?
At least 10. Jerry, you and I were talking this morning. Miami put out their list yesterday, and they had 10 guys invited. Yeah, that's a pretty strong representation for Miami. I would assume Texas is in double digits as well. Mel Kiper put out his top position grades yesterday. He had 11 Longhorns in the top 10 of their respective positions, I believe it was. So, look, the NFL draft is on its way, and it's going to be a somewhat of a referendum on exactly how much talent Texas had in 2024 to go on top of what they had in 2023. We want to talk a little bit today about the backbone of what we think this new Texas team is going to be in 2025. We got some news for there. But overall, I would be surprised if at least 10 were not invited to the Combine at this point, Jerry. You feel like it. You feel like Texas is just one of those teams right now that's going to get the benefit of the doubt based on how well they're playing in the season, and people want a better, deeper look at these guys.
Yeah, so I mean, if we can go down the list, that could it get closer to 13 or 14 is the question. I mean,
yep.
Quinn is a yes. Gunnar Helm is a yes. Cam Williams and Kelvin Banks, yes. Jake Majors probably, so you're up to 5. Matthew Golden, 6. Isaiah Bond, 7. It's 7 on offense. Then you get to Barron Sorrell is going to be 8. Alfred Collins, 9. You assume Vernon Broughton will be 10 if he gets invited, right? Makuba, 11. Johntay Barron, 12. So you're already at 12 right there. So the question then becomes, who else could possibly get invited?
Jaden Blue.
Oh, sorry, Jaden Blue. That's 13.
Because of his speed. Look, the reality of it is right now, not everybody that's going to get drafted goes to the Combine, first of all. But I think they're going to want to see and get a time on Jaden Blue. I do think that he's going to get an invite based off of that almost, and based on the fact that he scored 14 touchdowns last year. I mean, NFL, they value that. I know he's not an every down back in the NFL, but getting in the end zone matters. The one player that seems to be divisive of sorts is Vernon Broughton, Jerry. He either he's in the top 3 or 4 rounds or he's not anywhere near it.
Yeah.
He seems to be the one Texas player right now that is getting mixed reviews. Whatever reason those are, I'm not sure. But it's clear that he is getting mixed reviews at this point of all of those guys. I think there's at least 10 that are going to make the Combine, maybe 11 if Broughton is brought into that, or if maybe 12 if Broughton is one of the 12. But I think Makuba, Barron, Collins, Sorrell, Banks, Williams, Majors, Helm, Bond, Golden, and Ewers are all invited.
And yesterday, speaking of the Combine, we'll tie this into that. Yesterday, ESPN came out with a 2-round NFL mock draft, guys. And we had a question yesterday that asked how many we thought would be taken in the first 50 picks.
Yeah.
Well, ESPN thinks that 5 in the top 50. They have Kelvin Banks going to the Bears at number 10. Matthew Golden going to the Cowboys at number 12. Johntay Barron to the Cardinals at 16. Quinn Ewers to the Jets at 42, and then Alfred Collins to the Seahawks at 50. Y'all's thoughts?
And so some of those will have Cam Williams instead of Quinn. So this is what we were talking about yesterday. So you basically have 6 guys as real possibilities. So essentially, what's also going to happen is you're going to have and Isaiah Bond. What if he runs 4.27, Bobby? I mean, opinions change. So there's really 7 guys that are going to end up being in play based on combine, pro day workouts, meetings with team, everything. So you're going to have 7, I think, players draft in the first 2 rounds for sure. I think that's what it's looking like right now.
7 for sure.
I would think so because Isaiah Bond's going to test extremely well.
Yeah,
now,
I don't think.
Let's say six for sure, maybe 7.
Yeah, I don't think Quinn's a for sure top 2-round pick at this point. I think the verdict is still out on him a little bit among teams. You start picking a quarterback in the 2nd round, you expect him to play sooner rather than later, and I'm just not sure Quinn's there yet. I'll say this: Andrew Makuba. I don't care who gets him; they're getting a long-term pro as long as he can stay healthy. So whether that's in the 2nd or 3rd round, maybe the 4th even, I don't know. I just know that I would pick that guy on my team any day of the week because I think he's a willing tackler and he's got a sense for the passing game, like a really, really strong sense for it.
We talked about this. I can't remember if it was Jeff Howe and Rod and I, but Quinn's going to be one of the real conundrums for NFL people because he'll light it up at pro day on air, but the tape is not going to support the pick of what the on air would support. That's going to be an interesting one to see kind of how split people are even within an organization on him because Bobby, it's like last year after him throwing around at pro day, what NFL GMs were talking to him, like singled him out and were talking to him, right? He's gonna look really good on air again. So especially with time to train for it, healthier, working with the guy he works with up in DFW, he's going to be ready for pro day, and he's going to throw it really well at pro day. So then what happens to him? Because the tape's not going to match what they see in person. And that's where he gets very interesting from a draft perspective.
Yeah. Longhorns likely will be announcing who's been invited to the combine in the next 24, 48 hours if other teams are doing so as well. So we'll see how many get there. Jerry, another thing to talk about really is we said this at the outset. One of the things we wanted to mention is the 2023 recruiting class and how with this group of guys leaving Texas, what's the backbone of the team going to be next year? Okay. What class is the backbone of the team? I think you and I agree that it's the 2023 class, right?
Yes.
Where Longhorns signed 25 players in that class, and there are already 10 of them who have seen starting time in this roster. I'll start Arch, Anthony Hill, CJ Baxter, Jelani McDonald, Derek Williams, Manny Muhammad, DeAndre Moore, Leonga Lafau, Trey Weiser, Trevor Gooseby.
Yeah.
That's a pretty strong group of 10 guys that have already started for the Longhorns. So if we're looking like what does this mean? You want to talk about how recruiting classes kind of add up? The 2023 class right now, I think, is going to be the backbone for Texas going forward.
No, I totally agree. And I mean, look, so you can pencil in, I mean, what we're talking about, or what you just mentioned. Arch Manning's going to be your starter quarterback. Anthony Hill's a starter linebacker. We're going to get to a way too early All-America team release yesterday, by the way. CJ Baxter, obviously, either him or Weisner is going to be your starting running back. So that's 3 starters. Jelani McDonald's going to start in some capacity, whether it's safety or nickel. That's whatever the Texas staff decides through spring training. That's going to be 4. Manny Muhammad is 5. DeAndre Moore is 6. Leonga Lafau, 7. Gooseby's 8. I mean, I think it's guaranteed 8 starters next year out of that class. And if you look, you have probably it may be a different guy because look, what does Derek Williams look like coming off his knee, right? What does CJ Baxter look like coming off his knee? Then you have guys like, some of those young offensive linemen The crazy thing with that is Trevor Goosby's going to be a future NFL draft pick. The question is where and when. But the question then for the depth of this class, Bobby, what happens? Does an Andre Kojo or Jaden Chapman or a Connor Stroh make a push? There's a Kojo who's finally 19 years old. He was still 16 the day he enrolled at Texas. So he needed to be on a different path than everybody else development-wise. Does he finally start making a push? Does a Spencer Shannon become a key role player as a blocker for this Texas team? Colton Vosick, if he can ever stay healthy, he's probably a starter-level player. So that's the question: is who's the next? This class is going to have a number of NFL draft picks. They're going to have a number of starters. They're going to have a number of all-conference level players. My question is, as you build this team in 2025, who are the next 2 or 3 guys that may finally have hit their development curve and they become factors for this team?
Yeah, and I'm going to put another guy out there that we haven't talked about that's in this class that he's going to try to challenge for a starting role opposite Manny Muhammad. That's Warren Roberson.
Yeah.
Everybody is just penciling in Kobe Black at this point, but Warren Roberson is going to get a shot at that. Ryan Niblett's in this class as well. He's a role player, particularly on special teams. You mentioned Kojo and Vosick and guys like that. We'll see, but 10 guys of this class have already started for Texas.
Yeah.
2 of them have been injured, and CJ Baxter and Derek Williams now. Anthony Smith's actually the 24 class. But my point in all of this and what Jerry and I were getting at is that 2023 class is now the backbone of this team. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There are people out there like Michael Taft that are more the leaders maybe, or Trey Moore that came in and that was a different guy, or Colin Simmons is kind of that unicorn. Maybe Ryan Wingo falls in that category as well. But my point of this, if 8 to 10 of your starters come from a single class out of 22, that's the backbone of your football team. And that's what it looks like right now for the University of Texas, which means, if they're 4-year guys, then they would be more like Ohio State's team was this year. Because Ohio State got all of their guys, or most of their guys, to stay an extra year. So when we start talking, why is this important? When we start talking about national rankings and where Texas should be, et cetera, the team that won last year had a class like this that was actually 2 years older.
Yeah.
So they actually went into their senior year. So anyways, long story short, I think that's what we're looking at right now. We're looking at a team that the nexus of it, or the main portion of it is they're going to be juniors, true juniors. Some will be redshirt sophomores like Arch, et cetera. But my point being, that's where it's at.
All right. Well,
hey, by the way, I want to mention this because the chat's talking about it because it was part of the 2023 class. But yes, the Johntay Cook news, and you hope to look. We said it. I mean, this is all about talent maximization. You hope he figures it out before it's way too late, and it's getting to the point where it's getting late for him.
It looks like after transferring to Washington and being dismissed from the team, or a mutual agreement to part ways with Washington. Apparently, Blake, you had this. Apparently, he's been arrested yesterday on theft and then obstructing the peace. We don't know the outcome of that, and I do say apparently and allegedly. We've got it online from his stuff, but we don't want to go any further than that. But look, this is why. When things like this happen to someone, you wish them the best, okay? Because you don't know, you haven't walked in their shoes. You haven't walked a day in their shoes. And so while he may not be maximizing, Jerry, to your point, and I agree with that, Johntay, for the sake of Johntay, needs to, it's getting that time where, somebody needs to grow up a little. And, I wish the best for him as a person, much less a football player right now. Sounds like he's got issues that
Yes.
extend well beyond football.
Well beyond. Yes. And you hope there's somebody in his life, somebody that can shake the tree.
Yep.
Because it's not.
It ain't happening right now.
It's going the wrong direction way too fast for him.
Yes. Unfortunate.
He is on the water. He is on the big water slide at Six Flags that goes straight down 60 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Jerry, a few minutes ago you mentioned All-Americans, and yesterday ESPN came out with their way too early All-Americans, and a couple of Longhorns have landed on the list. We'll take a look at the entire list here, but Arch Manning right off the bat, second team, way too early. Preseason All-American at quarterback.
Well, we need a click noise for the chat for the next few months. We need a clickbait.
Oh,
he started 2 games.
2 games.
Nobody. By the way, I want to say this, and I wrote this morning on Texas Football. Nobody else on this list has played fewer snaps in college football than Arch Manning.
Yeah.
So, Cade Klubnik's a popular choice right now, but there are, Sam Levitt led his team to the national quarterfinals last year at Arizona State. Had a great year, right? Drew Allaire led his team to the national semifinals. But Arch Manning, who was a backup last year, now talented as he is, Jerry, you and I agree on his talent level. This is just it just reeks of clickbait.
Yeah, I mean, like,
I hope they're right, though.
Yeah, we hope that happens. We hope that happens because there's some really good quarterbacks. I mean, Drew Allaire opens up that list and says, "Man, I don't get no clickbait, man."
This is the truth. Now, this is the truth. C.J. Johnson. They said Arch was overrated, and now they're hyping him up like crazy. It's like the Lady Justice in the scales. They can't figure it out. They gotta say that he's not worth his name. He's only ranked there because of his name. And then when push comes to shove, we're gonna hype him up too. And
he's the first guy as a football recruit that was treated like, and Bronny caught a little bit of this, but it wasn't quite the level of Arch because football rankings, Arch was number 1 in his class before he played a game as a sophomore. And it was not just ESPN, it was a multitude of people. He's the only guy I've ever seen that was built up and broken down like that, like sometimes like pro athletes are in high school. I'd never seen anything like it. Like the build up and then the tear down in high school. Oh, he threw an interception this game. Can't be ranked number 1. I went to a game, he threw a pick. I mean, like, okay. Like and that's what I said. He's going to be like the next 2 years at Texas. It's going to be like the end of the Tiger Woods era in the Golf Channel. Well, every single golf swing was dissected by Hook'em Horns, Brandel Chambly, and the guys. Like, that's the way it's going to be. Every Arch 3-step drop, every 5-step drop, every read. I mean, it's going to be insane. It's going to be like when Tiger was it in late 2000s or late 2008, 9, when he went through the swing change and the Golf Channel's breaking down every single swing the guy made. That's what it's going to be like for Arch the next 2 years. You've already seen it. He got built up, torn down in high school, torn down a little bit more, now built up again. And here you go. What happens when they build you up? Your first mistake, start to tear down. So it's going to be a tear down build up for 2 straight years. It's just the way it's going to be.
So I'm going to give you all the Longhorns on the list,
which is a good thing.
I'm going to give you all the Longhorns on the list, and then we can take a look and see, Jerry, I know you counted earlier, but how many Texas will face on this list next season? So
when we talked about last season, Texas played, and it'll be proven out in the NFL draft. They played a ton of really, really good individual players on the schedule. People are like, well, Texas didn't play a good schedule team-wise. And I always was like, dude, they played some great players on this schedule. I mean, even before Ohio State, but And obviously before Clemson, before the playoffs, but what did Michigan have? 3 guys that'll be first-round picks, right? So 2 of the best D tackles, and then William Johnson. I mean, if you go down the list, Texas played some tremendous individual talents over the season. All the guys at Georgia, right? Deion Walker at Kentucky, guys that weren't really on that list, but will be in future NFL drafts that weren't draft eligible last year. This year, when you look at it from an individual standpoint, with what Ohio State lost, I mean, Caleb Downs on this list, maybe not quite as many, but I think the schedule as far as teams, because of road games versus home games, Bobby, may be tougher than last year. But in terms of the individual talents, they're going to be high draft picks and whatnot. They may not play as many of those guys on the schedule. We'll have to see.
All right. So for this, we have Arch Manning, obviously, was second team. But linebacker Anthony Hill was the lone first-team selection for the Longhorns. Colin Simmons was second team. And Michael Taft was second team as well. So,
and if you scroll down this is a reason Clemson, Bobby, we talked about, this is why Clemson's going to be ranked really high preseason. They have Klubnik. They have all 3 of those receivers returning, by the way. And this is Penn State, both running backs on that list, by the way. But the Clemson has 2 defensive linemen that are crazy seeing Max Clare first team. Has two defensive linemen plus Cade Klubnik plus all those young. There's Peter Parker and Woods, both high NFL draft picks coming up in this year after this season. And then all those young wideouts for Clemson. So there's a reason they're going to get a lot of love early on. But again, you look at this. Indiana's got some defensive guys back, by the way. But you look at this, and C.J. Allen really good against Texas. Suntory Perkins, the best pass rush linebacker in college football by far. You look at this. Jermod McCoy, for those that don't know, is from White House. Hello, Pat Mahomes. Was not highly recruited. I saw him at a track meet his junior year at White House High School. He was a long jump guy, really wiry, strong, skinny. I think went to Oregon State, then transferred over to Tennessee, but is going to be an NFL draft prospect. Leonard Moore from Round Rock High at Notre Dame, obviously a future NFL draft pick as well. So state of Texas well represented.
I was going to say 2 Texas players, 2 Texas products, McCoy and Moore. Neither one of them Texas offered.
And the second team guy there, Chandler Rivers, is from Beaumont United. No, he went to Duke because none of the major schools, none of the bigs around the region offered him because he was 5'9" and didn't run really well, but he'll make it in the NFL on some level.
There's Taft at safety there, second team.
I think David Keith Williams said Dante Corleone's still in college.
Yeah, the Cincinnati defensive tackle. I want to say this. All of those players for Texas are legitimate, except for Arch in that list. And I know they're betting on the name, but it just plays into that hype machine that ESPN is so famous for. And I'm not an anti-ESPN guy at all. Like I love their position in sports and what they've done for sports in the last 30 or 40 years of my life. But it feels too convenient is my point. And sometimes you need to look deeper and not put that kind of, I don't want to say pressure, because I don't think Arch Manning feels pressure by this, but expectations of the fan base on it. That's where it's unfair. It's not so much what it does to the player. It's what it does to a fan base, a common fan, maybe. Oh, well, now we're going to have a second team All-American. I mean, it just does. That's where it's unfair, in my opinion. So
it sets up the build-up, tear-down.
Yeah.
Is what it does. It sets up the build-up, tear-down. Because if you go up to Ohio State and you go 18-30 with a couple of picks and 240 yards, what are people going to be saying? He wasn't ready for the moment. Too much NIL, too much pressure. You know what's coming if that happens. You can already write the stories right now. That's the build-up, tear-down. And I've never seen a high school football prospect go through that in my life. That was a first for me. And the tear-down is ranking him 5 and the number 2 or 3 ranked quarterback in the country.
Yes. That's the whole thing. Like they overanalyzed it.
Yeah. Paralysis by analysis.
Yep.
That's something you don't have with Joy Mode, but we don't have that read today. All right, go ahead.
But now's a great time for me to tell everybody out there about Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. It's the best way to get action on sports in more than 30 states, including right here in the Lone Star State, along with states like California, Georgia, and Florida. The best part is that Prize Picks invented the flex play, which means that you can still cash out even if your lineup isn't perfect. You can actually double your money if one of your picks doesn't hit. And obviously the big game is almost here. It's right around the corner, and it's now or never. Don't miss out on the last football game of the season with Prize Picks, the best place to win cash while watching the big game. And Prize Picks is doing a big game free square that is essentially a lock. Patrick Mahomes only needs one passing yard, and then you win that square. So, of course, I added that to mine. I've also selected former Texas wide receiver Xavier Worthy to have more than 65.5 rush and receiving yards, Saquon Barkley to have more than 1.5 receptions, Travis Kelce to have more than 63.5 receiving yards, and Jalen Hurts to have at least one rushing touchdown. So come join me and make those picks or make your own. Download the app today. Use code ONTEXAS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Doesn't matter if you win or lose, you get that $50. Again, that's code ONTEXAS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. And that's Prize Picks. Run your game.
That's funny that you picked all of those. I think I agree with you. The Worthy one is a little iffy for me. But you got to think Travis Kelce's going to make his yardage. Saquon Barkley will make his. And you got to think that Jalen Hurts is going to do the tush push for at least a touchdown, right? You got to think that's coming. What do y'all think of the game, by the way? Like my wife and her father, my father-in-law, is a huge Kansas City Chiefs fan. I feel like it may be the Eagles' year, though, right now. I think they may be more physically dominant than Kansas City. Could be wrong, but we'll see. I think could be the Eagles' year over Kansas City is where I'm leaning right now.
What time is the game Sunday?
Boy, like 6-ish, I think, normally.
Yeah.
5-ish.
Okay.
I haven't looked.
Yeah, I'm going to be somewhere else. Yeah, look, and it's nothing against the teams. I just, it's not my. I just don't have interest very often in the Super Bowl or that. Yeah, it's massive, just from a pro sports perspective, and it's a massive legacy game for Pat Mahomes. Like, he already has his legacy secured in a lot of ways, but if he goes out and wins another one, Bobby, I mean, you're sitting there on the Mount Rushmore if you're not already of quarterbacks.
Well, 3 straight Super Bowl wins would certainly do it. I'm looking at the Chiefs are 1.5-point favorites right now, so it's basically a toss-up. Think of Andy Reid, going up against his former team. This is the second time he's done that in the Super Bowl. Look, if you want to watch and have, I know you're not a big pro football fan, and I'm not necessarily a huge pro football fan myself either, Jerry, but I love watching the Chiefs because I love watching how Andy Reid calls a football game.
Yeah, he's tremendous.
I mean, he's always got one more thing for you. It's like he's in his never-ending bag of tricks all the way to the end. It's like against Buffalo last week, the final play that really secured the win for them. He literally ran this amazing set where he washed out an entire side with crossing routes and leaked it back to the opposite side through the line of scrimmage for a first down. I mean, plays like that, you're just like, where do you come up with that with the game on the line? And he was I like watching Andy Reid call a football game. I'll just put it that way. Not saying that they can't be overwhelmed at the line of scrimmage at times, which I think, they may have to do. One of the big matchups of this game, not a lot of people are talking about, is Creed Humphrey, the old Oklahoma center, who's now an all-pro center for the Chiefs, going up against Jalen Carter up the middle. That's going to be two immovable objects going up against one another. Somebody's going to win.
Hey, you know why I love talking about Creed Humphrey? Because he was a highly ranked guy. But if you look, he has about as short of arms as any great player on the offensive line's had in many, many years. So we always talk about the combine measurables and all that stuff. And I think at times we rank the rankings nationally become too much of that in our industry. And colleges can, paralysis by analysis, over-evaluate on some of that stuff sometimes. It's my discussion with, I don't think Texas will sign Byron Murphy today, and I think that's a mistake. I'll say it. I don't think 6 foot, 280-pound defensive lineman with average arm length would be a guy that would be taken today. And I think that'd be a mistake because the size needed in the SEC. But Creed Humphreys is one of those guys. I mean, it really does not have the arm length that the most greats have. But the guy's a great player. He's a wrestler. People said he's a wrestler. He's a technician. He is physical. He is super smart. And it's rare that a guy with that short of arms is that great a player on the offensive line. He's a special one.
He really is. Hopefully, Texas got a wrestler in Daniel Cruz that can be as good. Some point.
Very similar arm length, by the way. I think Cruz may be half an inch longer. I mean, that was one of the things. And that's when you knew how good a player Cruz was in high school, is at Ohio State, Texas, A&M, Oklahoma, all of them. Despite not having the cookie cutter arm length, was still offered and wanted by every single one of those programs. Tennessee, you name it. They all wanted him. That's when you know a guy's a tremendous prospect, when he doesn't fit the cookie cutter mold, and he still want him everywhere around the country. Now, it's wrestler. I mean, looks like Bobby said, looks like he's swallowing an oak barrel. I mean, he's got that chest. He's got everything except the long arms. Same as Creed Humphrey.
Well, we have some super chats that we need to get to, but before we get to those super chats, I want to read this from Mike D. Today's my son Malachi's birthday today. He is 8. Hey, he had some Shipley donuts today, breakfast of champions. We saved y'all some too. Y'all do a great job. Hook 'em. Happy birthday to your son, Mike.
Boy, I could deal with some cake donuts from Shipley's right now, man.
I got to back out. I'll be back in a second. I got some news. But
I literally could do that, Blake. I'm all about Shipley's donuts. All about it.
I'm not a huge donut fan, but I'll admit Shipley's donuts are excellent.
Yeah, no doubt. What are some of the chat lines saying here, Blake?
All right, so our friend Jack here, thank you as always. He says, given the incoming class, I think our special team should be excellent again. What are your thoughts?
Here's my question. Who's going to be the gunners? I really thought Texas, with Warren Roberson and Gavin Holmes last year as the gunners, they just weren't as good as Keaton Crawford and Keelan Robinson. And so I'm a little concerned about that. Who's going to play those roles for Texas? Who are the long limb guys? Maybe it's a Jonah Williams, for example, that runs down. I just don't know. So gunners I'm worried about. I do think Jack Bomeister, the punter, will change the punting game for Texas effectively. He averaged 45 yards a boot last year. That's 6 yards more than Michael Kern offered this past year. And then I think that, frankly, you have to look at kicker and decide whether or not Bert Auburn can get things turned around. Because Bert Auburn, his sophomore year, not last year, but his sophomore year, was phenomenal. Really good. 29 of 35.
Yep.
And he hit from distance too. So that's my question, I guess, as it relates to special teams. If Bert Auburn can do there, and who are your gunners on punt game. Because I think punting is going to be fine. I think, we'll find someone who can return kicks. We mentioned Jonah Williams at one point. We'll see if somebody else can do it as well. But I think that special teams absolutely will be better next year. The question is, because I don't think it could get much worse, first of all. But second of all, I do think that some pieces of the puzzle will be different or more improved.
And then our next super chat comes from Jeff Carey. Thank you as always, Jeff. Should Arch also be the offensive coordinator?
And be the Broyles candidate, as he's the second. He's right now predicted to be the number 2 winner of the Broyles Assistant Award.
Jeff said he can also kick.
Yeah. Great.
He's just a do-it-all guy. Oh, welcome back, Jerry. Let's see here.
Jerry looks like the cat that ate the canary. Do you have anything you want to share here with us?
Jump in if
Jerry?
he did.
No, I mean, I just put something on the board on TexasFootball.com.
Oh, boy.
Wow. I guess
you got me wanting to go look at it real quick, Jerry.
All right.
Well, while you do that, Bobby, I'll tell everybody that now's a great time to join on TexasFootball.com. If you're not a member, you can easily become one. Just use promo code OTFOG. You'll get a full year for $49.95. Again, 12 months, $49.95 using promo code OTFOG. And you can go read what Jerry has to say on TexasFootball.com.
So let's cut to the chase, Jerry. You put a high out there just now.
I did.
Is there a reason? Do you think there's a imminent commitment maybe for the Longhorns? Is that what you're saying?
We shall see.
Somebody's just
don't elaborate too much.
Well, no, what you can never predict. We can never predict when the thing's going public.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, so but positive. All right, so you have Michael Terry's huddle because we had a question. We had a question.
A couple of Michael Terry questions actually, and let's start with a comment from Antoine. And I'll read that, then I'll get the huddle ready here. Antoine says it seems like Michael Terry will stick at wide receiver for now.
Yeah, Bobby, what do you think about that? Because I mean, we have obviously this is all we've seen of him at wide receiver. Chris Jackson and Steve Sarkisian and the staff saw 12 practices or 10 practices, however many he got in around the college football playoff bowl prep. He is probably the most interesting recruit in this 25 class for me because he's the one guy, with Cade Phillips, you can say, all right, he's going to start his career at corner. And if not, he'll be a really, really good safety. You know that with him. There's a couple other guys, like that. But with Michael Terry, because of the need for a short yardage goal line back, because of the pony package, because of how they used Juan Davis and what would that look like with this type of athlete playing that position? Or could he actually stick at big wide receiver? Is he going to be able to sink his hips, change direction? All those things, it makes him probably the most interesting prospect in this class to me because I can't predict where he's going to end up at this point. I don't think the college coaches can either. I just think it's kind of, you got to put him out there and see what's going to be his best fit long-term, where that frame goes.
Yeah, I said this yesterday or last night, and he's going to start at wide receiver, and we're going to see how he picks up the offense, in my opinion, before they start tinkering with him in other positions. Jerry, this is a somewhat difficult offense to pick up.
Yeah.
So saying, oh, well, he can play wide receiver and H-back and running back and yada. Look, no, let's get him proficient at one thing first, and then start tinkering with other ideas after. Now, maybe he's a really, really smart player and he picks everything up like that, right? And so he's able to go through all that. But I think during the spring, you're going to see him 95% at wide receiver. Unless they make a decision really quickly, no, he's not going to make it at wide receiver. Let's get him in the backfield a little bit as an H-back / running back. Okay? But look, Ryan Wingo, smart player. He did not, and he was there for spring last year. He could have played multiple wide receiver positions for Texas. He didn't even start doing that a little bit until late in the year. So players like Michael Terry need to learn one position first, and then you start tinkering with the idea of mixing and matching. Unless they're just so bright. I mean, and Terry may be this because you can see he lines up all over the place in high school. You have to give him a chance to be proficient at one thing first, and then start feeding him more heavily with different things out of the bait. I will say this, Jerry. You mentioned he's one of the few or one of those players that's a real interesting player for Texas and that he can do a lot of different things. That's one of the things we talked about in this class coming in, the number of big athletes that Texas has. Not only Michael Terry, you mentioned Cade Phillips, wide receiver or corner / safety. Nick Townsend is in that category. Tight end, defensive end, linebacker. What is he really? And then Jonah Williams, another big athlete with speed. So this class has a number of guys. I'm not going to say they're exactly like Michael Terry, but they have the same kind of question behind them, right? Like,
yes.
What do we do with this guy? What's the best place for him? And I think what they'll do is they'll see they'll start him at certain positions and then go from there and see what they think they take to. But, so he's got some explosiveness for his size, and all these guys, and I want to say this, all these guys have explosiveness for their size, which is pretty darn rare. I mean, it's rare.
Early on with Michael Terry, when I said, okay, what if he ends up playing a tight end position? That hybrid tight end. Yeah. Phil McIntosh, he looks huge on the field compared to other kids. Yes. I said Jaheim Bell. So Jaheim Bell was a high school wide receiver out of Valdosta who's put out tons of players. He signed with South Carolina in 2020. He ended up with FSU on that really good team in 2023 and was drafted and plays for the Patriots. Well, he ended up going from a 6'2", 215, 220-pound high school wide receiver, hybrid everything, to 6'2", 241 with 10-inch hands, running 4.6 flat, vertical in 35, broad jump in 10.4 at the NFL Combine. I could see Terry, if he ends up being a 240-pound player, being that, but better after the catch, being a better playmaker in college football. And why I think he could be unbelievably valuable if he grows out of wide receiver is goal line running back. He has carried the ball as long as he answers the bell physically, right? At the SEC level, it's a different physicality. And so you could be a goal line back. He could be really good in the pony package as a lead blocker and as a receiving threat. He could be really good as that H-back tight end like a Juan Davis. He could be a flex tight end for you as well and have the athleticism, downfield speed that is pretty rare, like Nick Townsend also has in this class. So he has a chance to be a real positive offensive toy for Steve Sarkisian. It's going to be so interesting where his body goes. I think they'll have to work to keep him under 230, 235 pounds. Torrey Becton's going to have to work at that to keep it just going down there. He's almost 6'3" and about 215 right now with them length, with that 80-inch wingspan. It's going to be hard. He's a bigger frame guy than Jonah Williams is. So how long can they keep him in the 220 range is going to be interesting to me.
Hey, Jerry, what do you make of, and I know this is off topic, but Caden Finley, Jermichael Finley's son up in Alito, received a crystal ball or RPM projection for Notre Dame yesterday. What do you make of that? And is Notre Dame clearly a major contender? I mean, he chose to go to Notre Dame's junior day over Texas's. What do you think? What are you thinking?
I think that is Texas now, and I wouldn't have said this 4 months ago, but that did become Texas's competition in this recruitment. But I see, look, I mean, sometimes the kids who grow up Texas may want to do their own thing, do something different. But Colton Vossick came back home, right? So even if something happens early on, I can tell you this: Texas won't stop recruiting him. They think Caden Finley is a tremendous wide receiver. I mean, like, if they were lining up the top 3 or 4 that they've offered, he's in that group. Yep. I mean, he's really good, and that'll be interesting to see what happens with him. But Texas will stay on him. But I'll tell you this: I talked about this a couple of weeks ago. If there was one coach who this season truly elevated his stock from a recruiting perspective, it's Marcus Freeman. He's going to be a thorn for people in recruiting moving forward. But I'm just here to tell you, like, the day I was at Forney, and what had been talked about with Javian Osborne for months, Texas versus Michigan. Georgia may be trying to get in there, Texas versus Michigan. When I sat down with Javian, really quick, he mentioned Marcus Freeman. So it was Tashard Choice, it was Tony Alford at Michigan, and then boom, Marcus Freeman in Notre Dame. Spoke with somebody in Tyler Atkinson's camp. Marcus Freeman came up. Marcus Freeman is going to be, he's going to have to be dealt with in recruiting at Notre Dame now. He is a very popular guy. He is very relatable. He is really good. I happen to, back in the day doing national recruiting, I happened to sit down and have lunch after a high school practice at Deerfield Beach. A bunch of different college coaches were there. It was dinner, I'm sorry. And they were like, "Oh, we're just going to go have dinner. Let's go have dinner." And I went and hung out at the dinner. And Marcus Freeman was an up and coming guy. I think he was at Cincinnati at the time, maybe. And I walked away from there saying that guy's got a lot of it factor to him. And he's going to be a threat in recruiting. He's going to have to be. Don't overlook Marcus Freeman when he gets in on somebody. He's going to be a threat now for sure.
All right, Jerry, will you please let everyone out there know about Gooder? And while you do that, I'm going to step away for 1 second.
Yeah, I had to go to my calculator, and I was seeing like when Luka gets his $60 million a year contract from the Lakers, sorry, Mavs fans, how many pairs of Gooders can he buy? Well, that number is 2.4 million, man. 2.4 million pairs of Gooders that Luka will be able to buy with his new contract when he gets it later on for the Lakers. But why Gooder, you ask? Besides those cool Texas glasses, Gooders you see the beach volleyball team wear and Texas fans around Bevo Boulevard and in DKR wear, they're only starting at $25 a pair, 1-year warranty, 30-day free returns. They're lightweight and comfortable. I've worn 3 different pairs of them. Lost one, didn't even faze me because they're $25 a pair. Lightweight and comfortable, 100% polarized, no slip, no bounce, really vibrant colors to sleek styles. There's a pair of Gooders for everybody's personality out there, designed for both everyday wear and active individuals that love to run, hike, bike, and all that stuff you like to do in your activity of life. When do you wear your Gooder Sunnies? On a run, playing pickleball, on a hike, going to the beach for sure. And if they fall off into the water, $25 a pair, you're not sitting there digging in the sand for $300 pair of glasses. Because they're so affordable, you don't have to worry about losing or breaking them. You can have a pair for every occasion, which I do. If you need a new pair of Sunnies, Gooder is giving On Texas Football all caps listeners free shipping. You can go to gooder.com/OnTexas all caps and use that code OnTexas for free shipping. Gooder offers, this is the part I have to read. They offer a 30-day money-back guarantee. You won't need it. Throw it in the trash. And 100% satisfaction. I guarantee it. Again, that's gooder.com/OnTexas for free shipping.
Hey, Jerry, when you were talking about coaches that have built up a little bit of a resume in a short period of time, you mentioned Marcus Freeman. I actually thought you were going to talk about a Texas assistant coach. Like Tashard Choice now coming back to Texas next year. He's not the one. He has already built up that resume. I thought you were going to talk about Chris Jackson. If you think about it, I would say he and Blake Gideon probably have started building up a resume as position coaches from that standpoint, as on the recruiting trail. Look, Andrew Makuba had a great year. Michael Taff had a great year at safety for Blake Gideon. Jelani McDonald coming along. And then you start talking about wide receiver, and in 2 years, Chris Jackson has had 3 draft picks at receiver in Mitchell, Worthy, Adonai Mitchell, Xavier Worthy, and Jordan Whittington. And then this year, he's going to have Matthew Golden and Isaiah Bond. That's 5 draft picks in his 2 years at Texas after spending time as a pro assistant. That's some credibility that's building on this Texas roster or Texas coaching staff. Not only with the Tashard Choices of the world or the Kyle Floods that we've seen previously, right? But some other position coaches right now are building up some real street cred, I think, with recruiting and with numbers in the NFL, et cetera. That's something.
And let's give Blake Gideon some extra credit here too, because when the staff was hired, you knew offensive recruiting with Steve Sarkisian, Kyle Flood, no matter who the coaches were around them, with Sark as the head coach, that was going to go well for Texas. But if you go back to year one at Texas, 5-7, I hate to keep saying it, giving up 57 points at home to Kansas, it wasn't easy to recruit defense. That was not as easy as recruiting offense with Steve Sarkisian as the head coach. And it's taken longer to build up your rooms, I would say, defensively. But you look at what Blake Gideon's got in the next couple of years. I mean, look, they were ahead of the game on Zealous Hicks in the reclass. So Kenny Baker, Tashard Choice, Blake Gideon, all 3 of those guys, but they were ahead of the game on that reclass. When he committed to Texas, and it was the colleges picked up that, oh my gosh, he actually is going to reclass. Remember that mad dash, everybody, last push to get Hicks on campus, Tennessee, Florida, everybody, before he signed with Texas? They've done good work. I mean, look, Jonah Williams was not – we always said Jonah Williams would stay close to home because just look at the family history. They have all stayed in state around close to home. It's a very tight-knit family. But that was not an easy recruitment to win. That one took a lot of, based on what talking to people in Galveston, in July when all these coaches are on the road with their vacations, Blake Gideon may have not been in Austin, but he was working really hard behind the scenes on the Jonah Williams recruitment. So, we'll give him some flowers because it wasn't easy to build that room because the defensive struggles in year one. There weren't as many kids when you went around and talked to kids. There weren't as many talking about Texas defensively as they were offensively. That's for sure.
It's changing. Yeah. It's that's what happens when you and this is something I wrote yesterday that I completely believe in, Jerry. And that's that right now, one of the big things that Steve Sarkisian, one of the reasons why he's been able to build Texas back so quickly is because he's had so few steps backwards. I mean, when you're trying to build something, any business owner knows this. You're trying to build it. You want forward steps, even if they're slight. You keep building those. All of a sudden, a year or 2 later, you built and you have this business or this whatever you're trying to, this team, right? But if you have to keep taking steps backward, it cuts into that. And one of the reasons why Steve Sarkisian has turned Texas around so quickly is there haven't been these big takeaways, these big setbacks. They've all been positive steps forward, and that just lives on itself and builds on itself. And I'm telling you, Chris Jackson, now that he's going to have 5 receivers in 2 years that get drafted. You tell me that doesn't help when you're going to recruit Tristan Keys or somebody like that. You're telling me that Blake Gideon can't say, oh, well, look what we did with Andrew Makuba. He wasn't even all conference, and now he's going to be a top 3 draft pick because we put him at the position he's supposed to be playing. Michael Taft was a walk-on, and now
he's got a really good. Gideon's built a good recruiting resume.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
He hasn't been 5-star guys for him.
No,
He just got the first 5-star guy this year.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Jelani McDonald never worked as a true safety for any period of time because he was a jack of all trades in high school, a high school quarterback, and you got to go win games, right? If you're Waco Connolly coaching, you totally get it. You're trying to go win a state championship there. But he, a lot of times at the safety position too, Bobby, that's the one position a lot of times you get a guy and he doesn't really play it much in high school. Like wide receivers play wide receiver, right? Corners play wide receiver and corner. But how many safeties truly concentrated on the safety position in high school? Like you go back to Earl Thomas. I saw Earl Thomas playing high school, was playing corner and running back and return man. I mean, there just aren't many guys that are true safeties that play safety all the way through high school. So it's an instinctive position, but boy, is it a developmental position. You have to find guys who have the ability to truly learn that position that haven't played it as long as guys that play other positions.
I'm just looking at this. I mean, look, tell me what you think of the size of these 4 guys at safety. Jelani McDonald and Derek Williams, both bonus size safeties, right? Long arm, long limb. Okay. Jonah Williams, bonus size safety. Zealous Hicks, bonus size safety. Then you mix them in with Michael Taft, Jordan Johnson-Rebel, Xavier Phillips. I mean, who are not small guys. Now, Taft is a little smaller. But my point being, Texas has a pretty imposing looking group at safety right now.
Okay, well, we talk all the time about ontexasfootball.com, going over to the website, guys. And Bobby, I'm going to ask you this question for Javier. Javier says, what's the difference between these videos and what's over on ontexasfootball.com?
That's a good question, Javier. I think that it tends to be more timely on ontexasfootball.com. We do videos 3 to 4 a day here, but there's a lot of news that happens in between. It's also kind of a repository for things like visit dates. Like, you hear us talk about visits for players. Well, on the website, you actually have concrete dates that you can refer to. There's also the opportunity to talk with other Longhorn fans, which I think is great, on our message board in the community section of the site. So there's a lot of different things. Jeff Howe, CJ Vogel, myself, Jerry, we all write articles daily. Blake participates as well. Hopefully you can go check it out and see what your interest level is. But it's a lot of fun. We try to make it fun and keep it positive. Not just positive, but what's the right word to say there? Between the lines compared to some message boards that you might see elsewhere. So.
And Joe Z's not here to take up for himself, so you can go over there and make fun of Joe Z too on the daily. Oregon Joe. Hey, by the way, speaking of, I wanted to mention this like for couple of minutes here, and I know we've got a couple other things I want to talk about, but we're getting the NCAA tournament time in basketball, and the women obviously they're hosting Dawn Staley in #1 South Carolina Sunday. But Texas Hoops has a huge game tomorrow. John Calipari and Arkansas is coming to town after winning at Kentucky, which was one of the all-time funniest things. They booed the hell out of Cal and then he beat their ass, which was kind of funny in only Cal fashion, right? Kind of smirked when they booed him, then actually won the game because they lost Boogie Flan, their point guard. Arkansas had some issues this year, but they're really athletic and good defensively when they put it together. But Texas is 25 in NCAA.net. They're 29 in Ken Palm, 27 in Bart Torvik. They have built with these 3 quad 1 wins in SEC play at OU, A&M, and Missouri. They've built a pretty good NCAA tournament resume right now, and they have 9 games left, and every game remaining is a quad 1 or quad 2 game, which means like Bart Torvik's now predicting, his predictor has Texas going 10-8 in SEC play.
Wow.
After the 0-3 start. because they put it together a little bit. They found something offensively. Trey Johnson's improved defensively. He's reading doubles and rotation defense quicker. Devin Pryor's added 6'7" length on the wing and transition ability. Tremont Mark is finally healthy. He's had an ankle, which you never really get over. If you've had two of those in the same season, it's really, you never feel like you're fully back. He's starting to get healthier. Jordan Pope, all those guys have kind of found their roles. Caden Shedder is, he takes some heat, but he's playing pretty good basketball for Texas in his role. And that's the thing, is how are you maximizing your role? And they have multiple guys who can go get a bucket against good defense when everything breaks down. So this is a big game Wednesday, tomorrow in the Moody. If you've never booed Calipari in Arkansas, you got a chance tomorrow to boo them both at the same time in the Moody Center. But if Texas wins that game, they sit there 5-5 in SEC play, and suddenly you start saying, okay, if they get the 9-9, they're going to be like an 8 seed. If they get the 10-8, they're going to be like a 6 or 7 seed. Think about where we were after the 0-3 start. It's getting interesting for them. They put it together a little bit.
Well, if you're in the Austin area and can make it to the game tomorrow, please do so. It'll be a good thing. Adam Lowy, one of our sponsors of the Lowy Law Firm, is giving away 2 free tickets tomorrow, by the way. And he's going to do it through here at On Texas Football during our coffee and football segment. It's going to be a trivia question that you're going to have to answer right. And then all you'll have to do is email your answer to us. And of those that get it right, we will pick somebody for 2 free tickets to Texas versus Arkansas tomorrow night, courtesy of Adam Lowy and the Lowy Law Firm.
All right, guys, we got time for a few more questions here. And let's take this one from Archmania. Which defensive back will be the hardest to replace, Johntay Barron or Andrew Makuba?
See, man, I know Johntay was really, really good, but there's something about a safety that gets it, that can be more impactful than a corner in zone coverage. That's just my opinion. And as good as Johntay was, I think they're going to miss, because look, Johntay was pretty good as a junior in the slot. Really, really talented, really, really good as a senior winning the Thorpe. But I don't know, something about a safety that's smart and fast and physical that lends to the up the middle defense. I think as good as Johntay was, I'm not so sure they're not going to miss Andrew Makuba more.
We've had a couple of those agree, and I agree with you. Daddy Trill, Makuba. Too broke to pay attention. Makuba. I agree with all of you guys. I think it's Makuba.
As good as Johntay was.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, it's not like Johntay was a shutdown cornerback. He's very, very good, right? So we're not talking about Deion Sanders, I guess is my point, right? Or Pat Surtain. He's a zone corner for the most part. I just think you impact the game more at safety. That's my opinion.
And then our last one for today, guys, is a super chat from Leandrew25. Thank you, Leandrew. And Leandrew says, when will Texas announce their spring game? That's the $1 million question, right, Bobby?
Yeah, it is. When will they announce if they're having a spring game? We've heard from multiple people now that Texas is contemplating not having a spring game. So I'm not saying that's the way it's going to go, but with folks like Nebraska already saying, hey, it's unlikely we have one, I think some of that can be said for Texas potentially. Now, they may have something else instead, like a fan fest or something like that. But, the whole age of the portal and it backing up against this whole idea of broadcasting your spring game to everybody in the country is probably not what you want to do. And people can say it's a disservice to the fans. I mean, I will say this. I love the spring game. Me and 6 or 7 of my really close friends from college, we rent a house in Austin around the spring game. and all go together, have a great time. And we've done that for a number of years. I will miss it from a personal standpoint. I get it. At the same time, I understand why Steve Sarkisian might make this decision, and I would support that.
I would say this too. Even if they don't have the spring game, which I do think that's up in the air, I think they'll have a fan day, open practice, essentially. But that's where I think look at Bobby. I think we both heard from multiple people. It's very much up in the air.
Yeah.
And I think where you're going to see more people, more colleges try to do this, what Matt Roll said. The interesting thing to me, the question I have for you, Bobby, is can ESPN put their foot down?
No.
Then if they can't, we're going to see less spring games.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what's going to happen. You can't say you're definitely going to do it. Now, some teams have already decided to put it on the schedule. Texas is not at this point. Hey, Blake, I know we got to get going here. Real quick, Mike White, the Texas softball coach, lost. It was announced yesterday he lost one of his better players for the season. Is that correct? Viviana Martinez.
Let me give me 1 second here, and I will bring that up. My apologies.
This is the number one ranked softball team in the country, or number two, depending on which service you look at. Mike White's Texas softball team. Viviana Martinez expected to miss the season with a non-contact knee injury during practice.
That's just terrible.
He mentioned her in the interview as that they lost the key piece there.
Yeah. So just people be on the lookout for stuff like that. We'll be following the Texas softball, Texas baseball, etc. For you guys. Jerry mentioned the basketball team. Jerry and Blake, before we let folks go, I think that I want to go back to this idea that one of the reasons why Sark is building this program so quickly is the idea that he's taking 2 steps forward or a step forward without taking a complete step back on something else. And he's done it every year since he's got to Texas. And when he loses a coach, I'll be the first to admit, I thought Bo Davis was probably losing Bo Davis was probably a step back. He found somebody that he felt comfortable with Kenny Baker, and now they're moving forward again at defensive line recruiting, right? And production, etc. Even when he gets hit with a setback, he's coming back with his own answers. And I think, that's what a coach does. That's what a leader of a program does. And I just feel like adding better recruiting classes, adding players from, all of those things, the Josh Dunson coming from director of recruiting at Memphis to senior coordinator of player personnel. Those off-field moves that Sark is doing, as well as the on-field ones, have been really, really why Texas why it has the trajectory it does and the sustainability of the program, in my opinion.
There you go. All right, guys. Well, that's going to do it for today's episode of Coffee and Football. We want to thank both Gooder and Prize Picks for sponsoring today's show. And, of course, thank you all for tuning in and for the super chats, the great questions. We said it throughout the show, but be sure to head on over to ontexasfootball.com. Again, that's promo code OTFOG to become a member for $49.95 for an annual subscription because we can't be here all the time, unfortunately. But, Bobby, what do you have for folks later today?
Well, they've got the recruiting breakdown. No doubt Jerry and CJ going to be going at that. Then we have also the Tuesday night live stream with Aaron Hogan hosting that alongside Rod Babers. And I believe either Jeff or CJ are going to sit in on that tonight as well. So we've got a lot of stuff going on. We are monitoring, as we mentioned at the outset, exactly who gets invited to the NFL Combine for the Longhorns. Some teams are starting to announce that. Miami, for example, announced that they're going to have 10 players at the NFL Combine that have been invited. Texas will probably announce their guys sometime in the next 24 to 48 hours would be my guess.
All right. Well, we will be back same time, same place tomorrow. So for Bobby Burton and Jerry Hamilton, I'm Blake Monroe, and we'll see you next time.
Hook 'em.